Obesity is not your fault. Or is it? Right? Right here we have you. This is you, right? Chances are you or someone that you know has likely been obese or is overweight, right? Obesity is growing. It's significantly grown and is continuously growing due to several things that are in your control and out of your control at the same time, right? This is you right here, okay? There are several things that are influencing your susceptibility to becoming overweight and obese, right? Things are not in your favor at all. It's literally the world against you, which is cool because that creates a cool superhero story, right? One of the first things that you're introduced to in life is the public school system or the school system in general, right? So one of the things that directly influences obesity is the lack of education that you receive on proper nutrition. That's a fact. The public school system does not teach children the right foods to eat and teaches them that whole grains are the most important foods to eat. They literally created something called the food pyramid, if you remember. And at the very bottom of the food pyramid is whole grains, breads, pastas, and carbohydrate-rich foods that affect your health and contribute to obesity. That's a fact. And so it all begins with school and the programming that you receive. The cafeteria lunches that you eat, right? I remember we had Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. On Mondays, we had mac and cheese. On Tuesday, we had, I believe it was pasta, spaghetti and meatballs. Wednesday was Mexican pizza. Thursday was something else, I forgot. But a lot of it was just processed frozen garbage that they're feeding children and are contributing to this very problem. And that's outside of all the artificial ingredients that come into the food that they eat. We are being taught that those kinds of foods are the most beneficial for us, or at least keep us nutritionally fed, nutritionally satiated. And that's very far from the truth. That is very far from the truth. We're not eating ancestrally human appropriate foods. That's the real problem, right? We're not teaching children that meat, organs, and some natural plant foods like fruit and some vegetables are the healthiest things that we can eat. We're not taught that our brains doubled in size ancestrally the moment that we introduce meat into our diet, historically. And so we're being conditioned from the jump, from a very early age, to consume toxic foods. So this is a big one, and I wanted to start off with that one because that's a big problem. The educational system and what they're teaching children, right? Another one is the food industry, right? And that includes, you grocery shopping and everything like that. So the food industry is large corporations that have capitalized on processed foods, on the development of processed foods and the manufacturing of them. The food industry is a multi-trillion-dollar, the processed food industry is a multi-trillion-dollar industry, right? People need to eat, right? But what is it? What's the first thing that you see when you go into grocery stores? What's the first thing that you see? Bags of chips, cereals, right? Those are the main things that you see, depending on which grocery store you go to. But for the most part, all grocery stores, processed foods are the first things that you see. And It's no wonder people are continuously making the wrong decision in terms of what they eat every day, right? It's right in front of their faces, right? It's very hard for a person, it's not your fault, but it's very hard for a person to, steer in the right direction, go to the produce aisle or go to the meat department to buy foods that are going to nutritionally sustain them and keep them very far from this problem, right? And so the food industry is a huge culprit, right? And I think that needs to be restructured as well. So obesity is not your fault 100%, but you are a sentient human being that can make the right decisions, the right dietary decisions. And with this information, I would hope that you would implement it. And that's what I help people with. I'm a health coach, right? That's what I do. I help people just like you. I've helped hundreds of people do the same thing and just lose the unwanted fat that they have on their bodies, restore the way that their pancreas operates in terms of regulating their insulin, right? And so the food industry is a huge culprit. And another big one is the medical industry, right? So the medical industry wants you sick. The medical industry, what's the first thing that they feed you post-op from a surgery? Jello, right? They feed you Jello. They feed you frozen dinners, frozen broccoli that was heated in microwave for 30 seconds, however long, right? The medical industry also would rather you rely on Ozempic and Mounjaro and other weight loss drugs to fight this very problem, instead of focusing on the real issue, the real core root cause, which is improper diet, improper lifestyle, right? And so the medical industry wants you on drugs. They don't want you to heal naturally, unfortunately. So in a way, it's not your fault. It's not your fault. We've been conditioned. We've been programmed. Another thing is environment, right? And I'm not talking about like your social environment, although that does have some influence. What I'm talking about is what you're exposed to every day. There are so many things around us that are affecting our hormones on a biological level each and every single day. The paint that your walls are covered in inside your home. They're called volatile organic compounds. The Glade wall plugins to freshen up your air. Dish cleaner, soaps, detergents, surface cleaners, floor cleaners, toilet paper, napkins, plastics. Your environment, believe it or not, contributes to this very big problem. When you're constantly surrounded by those endocrine disrupting chemicals, they're affecting the way that your body operates as it should, making it harder for your hormones to help you fight how fast and how effectively you can lose weight. So your environment is a huge factor. What I would personally recommend is that you audit your entire house. Look at where you have those endocrine disrupting chemicals. Obviously, like with walls and like paint and stuff and VOCs, you can't avoid. They do have air filters that can filter that stuff out. But look around and see what you can control, right? Are you brushing your teeth with plastic? Are you using fluoridated toothpaste with chemicals that you can't even pronounce? Like, what are you putting in your mouth? Social media and culture. Sorry for my handwriting. Jeez, that's bad. Social media and culture. That is another big one. The fat acceptance movement. Come on. You see it all over social media, especially on TikTok. But you see it on social media. People wanting to allow and enable other people to stay obese, to stay fat and sick, right? People want to feel included, but they act as if obesity is something that can't be fixed. They act as if it's like they're born like that, right? And that's very far from the truth, because obesity can be fixed. Weight gain can be fixed. Okay? So social media has a large influence on how people stay this way. And the fat acceptance movement is one that, however big or small, it's not really like a cult or anything, but there's a very large amount of people, no pun, okay, there's a very large amount of people that support that cause, and that's very problematic for the health of people. So, why would, instead of focusing on, creating XXXXXL clothing, why don't we try to push people to fit into smaller sizes? Right? That's a problem. And so the last one that I want to put here that it contributes to your obesity and, it not being necessarily your fault 100% is government. Oh, that's bad. Government policy, right? And this one is in a direct relationship with the school system, the food industry, and the medical industry, and maybe social media, right? The FDA, the CDC, all these organizations, right, these federal organizations have a vested interest in keeping you sick, undereducated, and making improper decisions with your life and enabling obesity, right? Things are starting to change with the Make America Healthy Again movement, but there's still a lot of work to be done. All of these things work together, and that's essentially you, right? Obesity, you. Obesity, you. Obesity is not your fault. There's so many things working against you, right? And government policy is one that we should study, right? And that we should look at, if you're into that kind of thing. That's more like, some nerd stuff that I'm into. But government policy has big influence on these food corporations. Big influence on these food corporations and how they regulate their food and the ingredients that they put in them. And that includes, we just saw Red 40 getting banned, right? The food industry and government policy, those are two big, I guess, aspects of the control and the clasp that they have on you as an individual and as a consumer in the modern world. And so obesity is not necessarily your fault, but at the same time it is, because you're in full control of the decisions that you make each and every single day. You're in full control. Each of these things, you can reprogram yourself to overcome all the challenges, right? We're going back to the whole superhero thing. You can overcome all the social pressures and the way that you were brought up. It's going to be hard doing it by yourself too, right? That's why people work with me. I help them get there as fast as possible, right? You need to be held accountable, is what I'm saying. If you could do it on your own, like, props to you, right? And I know you can. I know you can do it on your own. And so these are the things that are influencing your susceptibility to living a happy and active life. So if you're struggling with weight gain, if you're struggling with, losing weight, if you've tried all the diets, if you've tried, different techniques, if you're even on Mounjaro or Ozempic, those are temporary. Those are Band-Aids. And you need serious root cause intervention. That's why people work with me. That's what I help people do. I help them lose weight and help them keep that weight off for good. Because at the end of the day, no one wants to be obese, despite what social media tells you. So if you want to go ahead and book a meeting with me, the link is down in the description. I'm Christian. This is the Primal Resistance, and this is going to be no more.